to actually convince some folks, you know, of the profound difference that this stuff can have in your playing until somebody actually just puts it in their hands on the mouthpiece and goes, oh, wow! You know, we could do a whole wow reel or something, a French version of that same thing. It's just, holy, you know, you can just make a reel of that stuff. You know, and I get it too. I'm a skeptic by nature. I'm a man of science, and so I like for things to be proven. You know, separate the real deal from the snake oil, and that's why we're here. Basically, is to well, hopefully you've gotten a chance to read a bit on our website, or you've been following our social media. But basically, today is mostly about giving you a quick run through, a description of everything we're doing, but then to give you the chance to try the stuff and see for yourself the market improvements that you can experience pretty much immediately as soon as you get on gear. So I'll start with the trumpets, just because they're so big, shiny, and pretty. But really, the interesting thing is that I feel like our contribution to the world of trumpet players is more important on the mouthpiece side of things, because I mean, I love our trumpets, and I wouldn't want to play on any other trumpets. But there are a couple other brands that I really respect out there, and honestly, in the heat of battle, I could go on stage with any trumpet I want. Whatever. Hand me a student Yamaha, and I'll sound like me, as long as I've got my choice of mouthpiece. If you are a heck of a lot cheaper than trumpets, but really mouthpieces are the instrument, and the trumpet is a beautiful and fancy piece of plumbing that we attach to the end of the instrument to get it to project better. And as long as you start with that kind of understanding and realize how important the mouthpiece is in terms of determining what your intonation is going to be. A lot of people blame their horns for things that have nothing to do with the horn. It's all about the mouthpiece. It determines the tone quality you're going to get, the note connectivity, the quality of articulation. Most of that stuff is entirely or mostly determined by the mouthpiece. Which is why we've sunk at this point easily $300 grand into R&D in mouthpieces, and we don't give up until the mouthpiece is playing itself. Whereas a lot of it's kind of standard that a lot of mouthpiece makers will come up with something that seems like maybe it could possibly be a good idea. Let's put it on the menu and let the customers figure that out. But we're trying to do much better for our clientele and make sure that we've got recipes that work perfectly well, that we know work, which is why we don't do mix and match back bores and cups and all that stuff, because whatever, that path leads to madness. That's just searching for some combination that's never going to be a perfect equation from beginning to end. And for that reason, we've got one-piece mouthpieces, and they range. Actually, let me just jump into the mouthpieces since I've already gone this far. They work like clothing sizes. We go extra small to extra large, and to take that metaphor even further, there are maybe several different cuts in each size, because we've got, say, our medium cup and an M2. The M and the M2, the L, the large, and the L2, XL and the XL2. And in each of those cases, the reason for that is because we've got mouthpieces with drastically different personalities in that same size, in that same general volume. And we take different approaches to utilizing that amount of volume to come up with something that's either much sweeter and warmer and more forgiving of ugly articulations and stuff, or something that's a bit more spunky and lights up real easy and is quite, favors excitement versus sweetness. And for instance, our extra large cup, the regular XL, we designed that with some really fabulous orchestral players who play in concert halls where, if somebody just lets a quiet one out, you can hear it at the back of the hall. And so most of the time, their biggest concern is not sounding ugly, not being over the top. And our extra large cup does exactly that. It just gives you a pretty sound no matter what. It's a really good option for playing church, for instance, where a big room like that is going to magnify any clef, any articulation, any faint hint of something that's a little bit ugly. Or if you step on the gas and it can start to get a little bit aggressive. The XL is perfectly lovely for taming all that stuff. Whereas the XL2 is big orchestral cup. You can use it for. It's much better for playing jazz than the XL, but it's also just as good for classical stuff. But more for folks who need to play the exciting stuff. If you're playing the Gershwin pieces, playing John Williams, the XL2 has a lot more excitement. So basically, that's what we're doing is we're coming up with a couple of different options in each size category to tickle your fancy, whatever it may be. But yeah, and now one of the most important things to mention that you guys haven't seen, something that's new and hot off the press. Our mouthpieces used to be silver plated. That's what we're calling our Gen 2 pieces. Our Gen 3 pieces now look beautiful in their new golden attire, and you can see they're lightly sandblasted and have a lovely texture on the rim, there's a face. They're beautiful, and they are hypoallergenic. They will never tarnish. They will never scratch. You can be a complete jerk to this mouthpiece, and it's always going to look just as pretty as it did on day one. Yeah, right. Sure.
How can hypoallergenic? I've never heard that used on a mouthpiece.
Yeah, because mouthpieces aren't normally coated in anything that's hypoallergenic. The mouthpieces themselves are made out of brass, bronze, or nickel, which is something unique. Hey, welcome. Come on in. Normally mouthpieces are just made out of brass, and a lot of those brass mouthpieces have a bunch of lead in them, and it's just dirty and cheap brass. We use high quality brass, and we also make mouthpieces in bronze and nickel, which allows us to get by with having fewer designs. Actually, if you want to change the tone quality, the response that you're getting, we can tip the scale to making the mouthpiece more aggressive and more feisty at a softer dynamic level, or quite the opposite. We can make it so you've got to really step on the gas in order to make it light up, which is a great thing to have if you're sick of getting the hand from your conductor. So we can use the tone, that we can change the tone quality and the response of the mouthpiece depending on which material it's made out of. But the coating is a separate thing altogether. And normally mouthpieces come either silver or gold plated. Sometimes you'll see some things with titanium or whatever, but nobody's ever done anything like what we're doing. And we're not saying what it is because we fought long and hard to crack that code. So, and I'd be happy to tell you, I just don't want to tell the other mouthpiece manufacturers. But no mouthpieces were harmed in the process. Actually, that's not true at all.
You wish that was true.
I know. So from extra large to extra small, we've got what you're looking for. If you're a lead player, then you may want to hover around the medium to small and extra small range. If you're a jazzer who wants a big, fat, rich sound, maybe medium to into the XL2 category. And so there's not too much to say until we get you guys up here, and then we can sort of get a bit more specific with things. In the meantime, I'll just give a quick run through trumpets. This one aside, this is a design that I'm really quite proud of. It's our fourth valve attachment that we can put on trumpets. So normally, you got you're down to F sharp, and that's I did that. Yeah. And the bottom of the horn is an F sharp, but with this trigger, which is a rotor valve that we stick right at the beginning of the bell, it lets us continue just like an attachment on trombone. Just lower notes. You just keep on going, which if you're a jazz player, then you might find instant inspiration in that, thinking, well, wait a minute, does an alto sax just go down to E flat? Yes, you guessed it. You can play you can read through the Omni book if you got a fourth valve. Or also classical music, it becomes a lot more accessible too. All the stuff written for clarinet, which is arguably way cooler than what's written for trumpet, you just need to go down to an E for that, so just 2 extra notes. And all of a sudden, the world really opens up in terms of what's available for you to read and transcribe. And of course, it just helps to be able to blend in with other instruments without having to awkwardly switch octaves or anything. So if that happens to be of any interest to you, then we do make a fourth valve attachment that we can put onto any trumpet. That's just why my horn is up here, is just to remind me to mention that. The new belle of the ball for us at ITG was our C trumpet, because for a long time now, we've had trumpets that are fantastic in B flat, and classical players are loving them, and everything's fine. But a lot of times we have classical players come up and try the B flats and go, "Oh my God, I love that! What a beautiful trumpet! Oh my God, did you make it in C?" No. Let me know when you do. You know, it's just a lot of people just they make all their living playing C trumpet. So we spent a lot of time, a lot of energy on making our C trumpets, and we had to go back to the drawing board in a lot of different ways. For instance, it's the only horn we make that has a reverse slide, as was needed in order to make it so that you don't need to use any alternate fingerings. I just always thought that was kind of weird playing a tuning C with 2 and 3. It's like, there's something terribly wrong with the trumpet when when you've got all kinds of alternate fingerings in the money zone of the horn. So yeah, no need for alternate fingerings, no need for any of that, and it really blends in a lot. I mean, you can certainly make it sound like a C trumpet, especially if you go towards the brighter side on our mouthpiece spectrum. But actually, what's more impressive is the fact that you can get it to sound like a B flat too. So not everybody who plays a C trumpet wants to sound like they're playing a kazoo. Some people actually would like for it to sound like a trumpet, and we worked on that for sure as well. So if you play classical at all, or you're inclined to try the C trumpet, then give this thing a shot, because goodness, it is something. Now, then this is basically just like testing out beers, getting a beer flight. We're going light to dark here on the class scale. We got our classic and our universal. These two trumpets, they have the same geometry, exactly the same shape. And it's kind of like in the category of a Bach 37 or something like that. It's just standard fare, normal shapes, and we have a brighter and a richer option. And that's only determined by the materials and the thicknesses that we choose. So, and basically, it's just like I said with mouthpieces, we can make a mouthpiece in brass, bronze, or nickel. Could be the same mouthpiece in geometry, but in personality, they're tremendously different. The same goes for the horns. These horns are exactly the same, except for the bell. This bell is one piece yellow brass, and it's a little bit thinner. This one's a little bit thicker, and it has a bronze flare on the end of it, which really adds a lot more creamy to the sound. So you've got really quite a zippy, shiny horn that you don't need to play very loud in order for it to really start to sound. Whereas with the universal, it's just got more meat on its bones. So for jazzers who are looking for a horn that's not oversized in any way, shape, or form, I'd say check out the universal. Otherwise, if you're looking for a really old school sound, or you want something really vibrant, then check out the classic. They both, of course, all these horns can be pushed in any direction depending on how you play, which mouthpiece you put in it, and also we make tuning slides available also in brass, bronze, and nickel, which drastically changes the personality of the horn as well. I didn't even expect that until we started doing R&D and realizing that, wow, aside from the bell, the place where you can really influence the way a horn sounds and plays is more so in the tuning slide than anywhere else, which is lucky for all of us, because you can take the tuning slide out. If it happened to be a lead pipe, then we'd have been screwed. But here we've got these things set up almost in a way to even out. So we got the universal, which is a little bit warmer, richer by default, and there's a brass tuning slide in there, versus we've got the horn that's brighter by default, the classic, right now, which has a bronze tuning slide, which will pour a little bit more cream in the sauce. So, you may find that these two things even out like that, or you can put a brass or a nickel slide in this horn, which will make it the zippiest, meanest version of the trumpet that we got, versus putting bronze in here, which will make it the creamiest, richest version of this size horn. So we've got the classic and the universal, and then we go up into the next weight class, I guess, and we've got the solo horn, which is our newest B flat, and it's my new favorite, and it's a favorite for quite a few folks now that have been lucky enough to get their hands on early models. What's interesting about the solo, actually, you know what? Before I explain what the solo is, I'll go all the way to the big side. So we've got larger fare. These two horns have larger bells and And just a little bit thicker, kind of all around. Lead pipe is thicker. This one is the silver flare, and this one's called the Solo Max. Now these two horns have also the same geometry, but they couldn't be any different from one another. They have extremely different characters, and the results of that, it's really just about which metal we put where. So here we've got a nickel lead pipe, whereas brass here. They both have bronze slides at the moment. This bell is yellow brass stem with a pure silver flare. And this one has a copper stem and a phosphor bronze flare. It's two different colors or two different shades of pink. And then these horns, close your eyes, you wouldn't even think that they were made by the same company, let alone that they would have exactly the same shape to them. So we've done a lot of good work on figuring out which metal goes where and how thick that metal is in a way that really accentuates their personalities. So if you're a jazz soloist, historically most of our artists, myself included, that play Lotus trumpets, most of the jazzers have been playing on big bell horns. The problem is that some folks find that to be too much of a blow. They're not looking for a didgeridoo, they're looking for a trumpet. And that's how it can kind of feel if you're not accustomed to playing a horn that offers a little bit less resistance. And granted, our horns in the category of bigger sized horns, they give you a big boy sound and to fill a big room. Those horns are usually always a lot more difficult to play. These are by far the easiest horns that I've ever tried that are in that category, but nonetheless, they take more air, And so, if that's great, if that works for you, then hallelujah, you've got an enormous sound. However, if that doesn't work for you, then may I introduce you to the porridge that's just right. So what we've got here is this horn starts out light, just like our smaller bell horns, and even starts with the exact same shape in the bell. So essentially, it's a small bell horn until we get to about here. And then finally it opens up. And the result of that is that you get something nice to, I'll use the word push against, even though I never feel like I'm pushing into the horn, but you do feel a healthy amount of resistance. You definitely sense that there is some play there. It's not just, playing valve trombone. And that makes it a lot easier for most people to play versus the bigger bell horns where, that just feels like we've gone too far. In this case, it's really quite supportive, easy to play in the upper register, sharp shooting stuff comes no problem. And then, because the fact that the bell gets bigger and the materials are set up for it to be as warm as possible, then we're able to get basically, like 90% of the sound that a big bell horn gets, but basically a small bell horn. So they play wildly differently. This horn plays like the small bell horns and sounds like the big bell horns. It feels like a real victory. And that for that reason, it's the horn that I play. And the way that things are going, it seems like it's going to be our most popular horn among jazz players and possibly classical soloists as well, but we'll have to see about that. If you play in a section, most of your work is section work, and one of the most important things is blending with your colleagues who are on standard fare, then you might want to just stay here in the universal and classic category. But if you're never playing in big band sections or anything like that, but rather you're always playing, for instance, in horn bands where you're just like you and a sax and a trombone, then it's wonderful to go to a slightly larger horn or larger bell because that blends much better with those instruments. We get everybody gets a lot more compliments when they get onto a bigger bell horn from the other, from the trombone or the tenor sax players. Say, okay, now we're talking. Now, yeah, basically. So, given what you guys were saying you do, you could probably, check this one out for sure. As well, this is a valid option for you as well, and for playing in church, also a good one. If you're playing lead, it'd have to be one of those things where your concept of sound is to be a soloist sitting on top of the big band, right. Which is my concept when I play. So I still just use this horn I don't have a separate horn that I use for playing lead. I just put a lead mouthpiece into this thing, and it shoots fire all the same. But it's shooting fire kind of, it's got a widespread. Whereas these trumpets will, as resonant as they also have a typical projection pattern that follows suit with, with the shape of the bell, what you would typically expect. This one is the solo model and the other bigger bell ones, the Solo Max and the Silver Flare. These ones are really meant to fill up a room with sound, even behind you. The deal there is that no matter where you point your horn, you're always basically going to give the same sound to everybody in the audience. And I like that for me, this is the porridge that's just right, because I always want to give everyone the same sound. I just don't want to have to work any harder for it. So this is this is a have your cake and eat it too kind of trumpet. And that's the one that I've got a solo right here that just happened to have the fourth valve attached for extra range. So that's the line. If you'll indulge me, I could pop in one mouthpiece and play across all the horns real quick, so you can hear kind of what the difference is there. I'll go with our standard. If you play on a 1.5 C, 3 C, whatever, some kind of C cup, that's our L, our large cup. A D cup on box scale would be like our medium, and then for lead pieces we get into small and extra small. A typical B cup, which just gives me the willies to say, because I've never fallen in love with a B cup. I don't know if any of you guys have. Not very forgiving, but our B cup equivalents, the XL and the XL2. Don't be scared. they can play in the upper register. They do not cut you off upstairs, and it's definitely worth checking out. But for now, for my quick shootout through the horns, I'll just play our 2L, which is the equivalent of 1.5 C or a overbuffed 3 C. And here's our classic. At all, but there's a lot of shh in that sound. There's a little bit of, but not all that much. It's mostly exciting, right? Compare that to the universal. And for fair fight, I'm going to put in the bronze slide as well, because the other one has bronze. Meat, but maybe not any less excitement, but it's kind of, that is being supported by more in the sound. The crescendo, and you can hear there's a lot of warmth in that. Right, now let's move on to. Now you can hear all of a sudden how much bigger this gets. Now we're in a different weight class, for sure. I'll come back to the universal, that AB. There's just a width that's not quite there. This is very much more in the vein of a traditional trumpet. They're incredible resonators, incredible amplifiers. So it doesn't take, I'm not saying that these ones are better than these ones, that these being traditional make them in any way lesser than. It really just comes down to your expectation of exactly what kind of projection you're looking for. And this one. Great for ballad hearing. Also nice, I'm putting the same intention in there, but you see how like all of a sudden there's a one dimension missing in that sound by comparison. So while our horns still outperform the crap out of other horns in their same weight class, if you're looking for real big sound, and basically for free, something that doesn't cost you any extra energy, then you know to check out the solo model. And well, now we get to the bigger ones. Silver Flare, this is a really interesting one. This is the most unique sounding trumpet, modern trumpet I've ever heard. It's so now we've got a lot of cream in the sauce. And so there's a lot of ooh in the sound and a lot of E in the sound, depending on how loud you're playing, which mouthpiece you put in, but not a whole lot of A, you know, like that sort of nasally, mid-range, high range of the trumpet is kind of getting scooped out a little bit. So you get a lot of depth in the sound and a lot of shiny high-end harmonics, which is interesting. You know, it's like there is excitement in there, but there's also some, you know, an annoying factor that's not there. I'll do the same sort of thing on the solo now, so you can hear. This is also a glorious sound, but it's got some frequencies that the Silver Flare is getting rid of. See, that comes across as a little bit more aggressive in comparison. We're talking nuances, and in this shop, I'm actually in the space. I'm not hearing as much difference as I usually hear in other places. But I mean, in front of the bell, I imagine you guys are getting different perspectives. Yeah. You know, they are siblings, but not the same person. And right, so I can give you since there are a couple of commercial and sort of lead players in the house, I'll switch to something a little bit more aggressive. Not necessarily a full-on lead piece, but this is the tune medium in nickel. So that is basically we're setting phasers to kill already.
That's what I play.
Yeah, excellent. That's a great mouthpiece because it's really got an all-access pass to the upper register with very little energy required to get up there, and because it's made out of nickel, it's quick to get exciting. You know, you don't have to go beyond mezzo forte for it to really already start to light up. You know, I'm in like second gear, you know, and already it's. I'll go all the way to the meanest thing we've got. This is a new addition in our Generation 3 menu. This is the XS tube cup. So we've got a new extra small. And it's also made out of nickel. So this thing is really, there's no humanity left. It's just, it's not a nice guy. I mean, it's just like pure fire. It's, oh, wow. It's amazing. And of course in the classic is great for that. You won't notice too much difference when you step on the gas between the classic and the universal at this point because, you know, the mouthpiece has such a strong personality, it's gonna really take over. We get to start getting the bigger bells, you'll get basically the same character of sound, but just a hell of a lot more of it. See, it's just like, it's everywhere. That sound is everywhere. And these mouths, I mean, a lead mouthpiece is always going to do what a lead mouthpiece does in a horn, no matter how big or how small it is. Just extra guilty pleasure playing such a big horn with such a small mouthpiece. And it's interesting because it'll leave even just the ugliest, meanest, like jerk of a mouthpiece can still actually end up sounding sweet in a bigger horn. You know, a horn that's set at least with its choice of materials and its thickness. It doesn't even have to be a big horn; it'll still end up sounding pretty warm. We'll do that. Demonstrate that on solo. So it's not the biggest sound you'll that you'll ever hear, but for a lead mouthpiece in a it's a lot more doable. So there's that, and then one further demo. I'll play the XL2 cup. So we're in one of the extra large cups. This is well into the category of things that normally scare the hell out of trumpet players, because it means you might have a really lovely middle C, but the high C is barely achievable, let alone anything above that. But, which one am I going to play for you? I'll do Alpine Symphony. Okay, so I'll do a kind of an exciting classical excerpt for this. It's just lovely. There's definitely nothing getting in the way of that at all. Big difference on that one, right? Not as big of a difference with the lead mouthpieces, but now with this, in this situation, playing that music with such a deep mouthpiece, you can really notice how much richer the universal gets. And then, just because why not? I mean, the solo model isn't likely to be found in an orchestral section. Although, to be fair, in strong argument for playing on bigger bell horns in the orchestra, German trumpets, rotary trumpets, have bells that are this big, and so this is kind of a hybrid in between. I really don't find it to be inappropriate whatsoever for orchestral playing. But. I mean, it still does the job, and it's likely to spread even more evenly across the entire concert hall. Now, if I use the same mouthpiece and just do a quick little jazz thing. It really turns even the brightest one into a sweetheart. Especially once you get to the universal, that can be your all-around jazzer horn. Like there's no with a mouthpiece that wants to be a sweetheart and your intention to be a sweetheart. There's no need to want for bigger. However, if you just can't help but want for bigger. By the way, all of our horns do have a pedal F built in. You just have to play an F sharp and throw the slide. There's enough slide throw you can play a real F, which comes in handy. There's so much in that sound. So, again, it's an amplifier. The amplifier isn't necessarily going to determine as much about the total, this, how do I put this? It's not about the trumpet, it's about you and who you are, of course. So how you play is the first most important thing. The next most important thing is the mouthpiece that you choose, and that's really gonna determine a lot. But then, when we get to the level of the amplifier and the projector, that will change, you know, obviously the color of the tone even more, and it'll change the projection. But basically, you've got a whole bunch of great amplifiers up on here that are gonna give you more than you've ever gotten out of any other trumpet for the same amount of energy put in. And it's just choose your flavor. So basically, in a nutshell, the elevator pitch for Lotus trumpets is less energy in, more energy out. It's just a better amp. That's it. You know, it's got more juice flowing through it, so you don't have to worry about playing so hard. So that's basically the quick overview. Oh, I can put you a little bit on C trumpet too. What's going on? Without spit. That's annoying. You know, it's a nice, big, pleasant sound. And it doesn't sound dissimilar to the B flat, you know, in that example, right? So the C trumpet is just a phenomenal achievement to make a horn that sounds that big and rich and is in tune. So there are the horns, those are the mouthpieces. Now we can basically move on to helping you guys, you know, sizing you up, see what's, you know, what fits best on the face, which matches your personal desire for tone, and yeah, we can start anywhere. Who wants? Yeah. Nickel. Yeah. Well, the one I just gave you, that one was the 7X.
Thanks for coming. Well,
Oh, this one
I
has
did
my-
switch.
it's the 2M.
I have a few different horns.
So there is an M2.
I did one
Well, so, all right, so the
myself,
first number
but
refers
we
to
can't
the,
keep
so
them
we
in
don't get
stock,
confused.
and
First
so
number is the.
I sold it just because somebody
we
begged
make
me,
our mouthpiece.
and then I can't get them
So
enough
1,
to
2, 3,
get one for
7,
myself.
9, and 11. And those roughly
No, it's
correspond to
coming
body
from
sizes. So we can, I can
Italy,
say I'm playing the medium
England,
in nickel. We have an
Texas.
M2 cup, which
Yeah.
is really
It's an
similar.
international
In
affair.
the cup
It's
shape,
Trumpet
it's
here.
just
But we are right through the Steelers,
a little
so
bit
we
shallower, but same
carry
shape.
all the horns,
The big
have them in
difference is
order,
that the
do our
throat is a little bit
mouthpieces.
tighter on the M2, and the back
Yeah,
core
they're
is
super
a lot
nice.
narrower. It's much more like a lead mouthpiece. So basically, if the M cup is
Oh,
our
yeah,
starting
good,
point,
yeah,
which it was,
yeah.
the M2 is
Okay,
a
hey, thanks for
right-sized
coming.
version of that, to turn it into a, you know, a lead mouthpiece for folks who don't like playing on lead mouthpieces, who say, yeah, I'd love to have all that excitement in my tone, but I bought them out in lead cups. I need something more substantial to put my face into. That's the M2 cup. That's fantastic for getting as close to a lead sound as you're gonna get, without actually playing with a lead mouthpiece. I can give you that A/B comparison. So, M2, okay, so here's the 2 medium in nickel, so it's already gonna be as mean as the M cup can be, and then the M2, which, you know, has those slight shape differences that I mentioned. So listen to how much meaner the M2 is than the M. Here's the regular M cup. So that's the medium.
And mine doesn't sound like that.
I gave you the disclaimer. Number 1, how you play. Number 2, what's the quality of the mouthpiece? You know what I mean? It's just, it makes you want to play like a jerk in comparison, because it's got that, it's got sharp teeth and claws. And same phrase, same energy put in. You know, it's just, and also So if I were to play, you know, you can just hear that. It punches harder. You know, this definitely functions more like a lead mouthpiece. But it's got a real cup. You know, a substantial cup that, you know, even if you've never played a lead mouthpiece in your life, you can definitely get along with the M2 cup. So that's one of those really honestly important things that, you know, because that we offer, because a lot of players can't play lead pieces, and so they end up playing on a deeper piece than they'd really like to, and they don't get the tone quality that they'd like to, at least at the volume where they'd like to play. So they got to play louder, cashing in their endurance just to really overdrive the horn to get to a place where the sound is exciting. So it's actually really important to offer people an alternative to that whole scenario where you got, you know, something with a substantial cup that does let you play aggressive. It does give you all the punchy articulation that you would need for commercial horn sections and stuff, and without having to step on the gas really. So even if I just back off. That's the medium cup. You know, that is significantly punchier, crisper articulation. You know, the other one wasn't bad at all, but this is more specifically a tool for that job. You know, and trying to get it to be big and wide and beautiful. You're mostly hearing that shh in the sound. You know. Can you hear that? Shh. There's a lot of that. Now, even though this one's still made out of nickel, it's not so much shh as it is. You know, there's and that's still with nickel. So just to further support that, I'll play the 2 medium real quick in brass. That's a significantly wider, richer tone. You know, that comparatively, that's just a laser beam that favors higher, sparkly harmonics. So that's basically what we're doing, is we're offering different tools for specific jobs. And while some people's, you know, personal setup and tastes might end up having them choose kind of making odd choices of which tool works best for them, that's perfectly good. You know, Marquise Hill plays on an 11M2, you know, and he's getting that flugely, airy sort of vibe. That's just, you know, there are exceptions for sure. But in general, I'd say the M2 is great if you're not looking to play on a lead piece, but you do play commercial and lead work. Whereas the medium cup has a less specific application. You can, depending on who you are and how much juice you're giving it yourself, you can use it for all of those things that I mentioned for the M2, but also it could be just your everyday playing as a jazz soloist piece. It could be the thing that you pop in to play gorgeous, warm, rich piccolo playing. You know, there's a lot of stuff that you can also, well, either of these would be appropriate for a classical player to pop in when it's time to play shows. You know, that comes real easy in the M2. You know, whereas, you know, that's a different sound. You can hear it's wider. It's perhaps a more mature sound in that it's got a more even balance of high harmonics to mid-range to low-end harmonics. It really just depends on who you are, but you can't go wrong in this medium category in terms of having a big sound and a big and a rich sound, but also, you know, having a much easier access to the upper register than you would get on deeper cups. There's a big difference. I mean, I can play all the same notes no matter what you get on a flugelhorn. You know, give me whatever, because I control the type of air I'm putting through the horn, and so I'm in control of which note I'm playing. What's going to change is the tone quality that I get across the board. You know, and that's just to explain myself. For most people, you'll find that a deeper mouthpiece doesn't give you the same access to the upper register, and so you're changing the tone quality and your functional range. And in that case, you'll definitely find it a much easier upper register on the medium cups and versus the larger, extra large. But for those of you who really don't find that it changes all that much, you know, that pop in a different mouthpiece, you still can play to that same note that you've always been playing to, but what changes is the tone quality. In this case, you'll just find more excitement in the medium cups than the large cups. Yeah, so and I mention that just because our large cups, people typically say, well, I play on a 3C, or I play on a 1C or 1/4, and so I want that. I want the closest equivalent to that. And that's perfectly cool, but that also leaves a whole bunch of people who are in love with their L cup or their L2 cup, that just kind of stay there, that don't necessarily venture out into the other mouthpiece shapes or sizes that we make. And it definitely is helpful to have a little sports car on hand for those moments when it's sports car playing to be done. You know, so rather than muscle it out and work harder than necessary to play some fireworks kind of stuff on a large cup, just switch to medium. Take a partial holiday on that gig and just let it come out easier. So that's just a momentary encouragement to actually think about using a mouthpiece that you might not have also using a deeper mouthpiece. Any mouthpiece that you would have considered before to like not really be applicable. Like, I don't like the sound I get on D cups. It's not as big. I'm not going to do that. Or I don't like how I lose my range on B cups. You know, in the upper register, that's just no fun at all. So I'll stick to my C. It's middle of the road. It'll get the job done. In our case, our line is designed for you to be able to have one of every, an extra large, a large, a medium on hand, and you just pull out the right tool for the right job. They all match intonation, the rims feel the same with the face, and all that goes a long way to making it feel easy to do that, to switch between mouthpieces. But if you're playing on a 1 1/4 C for your classical stuff, and then for piccolo you switch to a tiny little shilky thing that's got a totally different rim and a completely different intonation configuration, different blow altogether, that starts to really throw monkey wrenches into things, you know, and that's when it can start to feel less comfortable in order to be able to switch mouthpieces. But here, you know, in our line, it's basically the same exact business as usual on the face, and you know, you just get different results in terms of tone quality, or perhaps also upper register access. So I would encourage you really to try different depths of cups. After you've gone to you've gone and checked your normal one, try one size smaller and one size larger and see how easy that is to do. All right, well, if you have any other questions, things that I can demo before you guys get into it, feel free. There are no stupid questions. I might give you a stupid answer. I'll try not to. Yeah.
Curious on the silver flare.
Yeah.
If you wanted that to be big,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
go with nickel mouthpiece with the goodness line?
Yes. Well, there is such thing as, you know, the difference between a medicine and a poison is usually in the dose, and there is definitely such thing as too much nickel, especially considering the lead height is already nickel. So nickel mouthpiece, absolutely. The most notable performer who's playing on our silver flare is Marcus Pinto, the soloist in Lincoln Center, Jazz at Lincoln Center, big band. He's always playing on nickel mouthpieces. He's got an M and an L2 in nickel, and that's just that's par for the course for him. Typically, the bronze slide, I still recommend like full time. You could put a nickel slide in, but it will just kind of, you know, there's a way to describe this. You always have to make a choice. There's always an A or B, you know, a binary choice. Do you want more of this or more of that? Do you want more flexibility or do you want more stability? Do you want it to be really stupid easy in the upper register, or do you want it to be really rich and low? You know, there's always a trade-off. And in the case of nickel silver, no matter where you put it, whether it's your mouthpiece, the tuning slide, there are several qualities that nickel gives it. Number one, as I said before, you can play more exciting in a softer volume, but it also, and so that's the tone quality that change that it influences. But then there's actually a playability change as well. It gets things more locked in and on rails, so it adds much more stability at the expense of flexibility. So that might be perfect for you. You know, it may be that for sharpshooting things, it really feels nice to just have those notes quantized right to where they belong. Or you might feel more comfortable being able to go slip sliding on your own and not have such strong, harsh clicks presented to you. So the way that you interface with the horn is definitely changed with nickel, especially at the level of mouthpiece. And then after that, the tuning slide as well. So if the mouthpiece is nickel and it kind of locks you onto rails and makes the note targets idiot-proof, but it's not necessarily the widest sound you can get. And then you put a nickel slide into that too, that's also going to further kind of compress your sound into a more directional vibe, and will also add more stability versus flexibility. So it may feel really easy to play notes, to be able to pick notes off, but it won't necessarily be the most flexible experience playing the trumpet. And it may be, where medicine becomes poison, in this case, if there's too much nickel in the mix and it really tightens things up, you might find yourself cracking more notes because you weren't necessarily aiming for bullseye every time, So there's a bit of forgiveness that a brass or a bronze mouthpiece or slide will give you. Then nickel really says, okay, fine, we're gonna hit that note target, but you better make sure to be aiming at bullseye. Otherwise, we're actually gonna chip the note above and the note under, and there it is. So that's just a personal thing. You obviously just try it out. I would recommend for this horn, nickel mouthpiece, bronze slide. The bronze just opens the tone, gets it wider and warmer. Nickel here and nickel here takes away some of that rich ooh quality that makes it a well-balanced sound, and really just focuses on giving you just an aggressive sound. So it's a good question. There's also such thing as too much bronze as well. And since we love bronze tuning slides and bronze mouthpieces are fantastic, we've chosen not to make bronze lead pipes, because you can play with a bronze mouthpiece and a bronze tuning slide, as I do. If I'm not playing, basically, most of the time I'm playing on, historically, on bronze mouthpieces. I've got a special little thing to show you after, but we'll get there in a minute. But I really love playing bronze mouthpieces, and they work very well with bronze tuning slides. If it's also a bronze lead pipe, game over. It's awful. It's the same thing with nickel, it's just awful. So, we have to be really careful about and conscientious about the choice of which metal goes where. And basically that onus of responsibility is on us. We've had to try it. We've laid out an entire table full of horns where we've changed only one part among those horns, 4 horns, 5 horns, where it's just, okay, here the lead pipe is going to be nickel, 0.5 millimeter thick. This one's going to be nickel, 0.7 millimeters thick, or whatever. And then here we go to thin brass, thick brass, and then thin bronze, thick bronze, and just find out what happens when we change that one parameter. So we deal with controlled experiments and then map out what leads to what, piece by piece. And then when we have, once we got that understanding of that whole category, of that whole topic, then it's, okay, so what happens if you compare, or you pair together a nickel lead pipe with brass this and bronze that? Okay, well, maybe, but also let's try all the other configurations just to come up with, the menu that we've got. And even still, there are pairings of which material in the mouthpieces to choose and which material for the tuning slide to choose. For that reason, we ship the horns out with 2 different tuning slides. So you get, if you want the 3rd one as well, you can order it. And in the end, if it's just, there's one tuning slide that you want for everything, in my case, that's bronze. You can return the other slide, get credit, easy. So we provide lots of options, and a day like this in the shop is really helpful so that we can just eliminate the guessing game for you. You can start with a hypothesis of what's going to work for you, and sometimes it's right, sometimes it's not. But either way, we can. That's why I'm here to help. So here we go. Any other questions? Yeah.
So I noticed out of all the big built ones you have, universal mags.
Right.
Not manufacturing, or
we've retired it. It's really the solo really kind of fills that portion of the sound spectrum. We are looking to add one more horn to the mix because we've got 2 small bell horns, 2 big bell horns, and we intend to have 2 medium bell horns as well. which would have basically the same metal configuration as universal. So there will be kind of a newer version of that, but it's going to have the smaller mid-sized bell. Also, it's worth mentioning we tried the silver flare in the medium bell and the small bells, and it just doesn't work. It just doesn't sound good. So because sometimes people ask about that, like, well, I really love the sound of the silver flare. Can you make me a small version of it? No, we can't because it sucks. And I can't say why. All I can say is that it does. But we have maybe one more round of R&D left to do in order to make a brighter, more aggressive version of the solo. We already know it's going to be called the lead solo. And mostly at this point, we haven't settled on a lead part. That's pretty much just it. We had one on a tour with us, and it wasn't winning. It just wasn't mean or aggressive enough, because this horn is already capable of going there when you step on the gas. And if you pop in a nickel slide into this thing, it's brutal. Oh, so good. So we're literally gonna make a horn that every time a horn gets put onto our menu, it's because it had to pass a really high bar of, yeah, but who's gonna use this for what jobs, and is it really necessary given the other horns we have on the menu? Is it really offering something that the other horns don't? And once we find that specific recipe, then it'll make its way onto the menu. Good question. Anybody else? All right, good. So let's try. Who's ready? My first victim.
I'll do it.
Okay, come on up.
Not shot, raises the
So
I
let me
know, bold.
take it this way. What you got?
This is the Trumpets from Redlining.
Okay. I've never seen one.
Yes, there was only 50 made.
Okay. So his doc had 50 made in Germany, and the
Yeah,
rest were made
and
in
then
Japan.
then he went over to Cancel and then South Korea with us.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
And I'm talking about 10-1 Lotus.
Okay. Which side?
1L.
Okay. Step onto the road.
And also Roman, also Lotus.
Cool. Actually, go ahead. Put on the mic. Is this your warm up?
Yeah, I drove from Evansville, so I've got no warm-up time.
No worries. You're in a judgment-free zone.
Thank you for
And that
that.
already sounded good. No. Oh, remind me, which one was that?
This is the lead, this is a 3S.
3S, cool. So first thing to do is check out the new version of 3S. This one's gotten several major firmware updates since the Gen 1.
Okay. Lovely call, by the way.
Excellent. It's great with the horn. Indeed. yourself in less than perfect conditions is actually a pretty good way to test out a mouthpiece.
That's fair, yeah.
Whether you're not quite warm or you're well past warm, either way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mhm. Okay, back to yours.
Yeah.
Yeah, so one of the things that's changed is that the throat has gotten a little bit tighter in this version compared to that. And so we're getting a false positive on this one in the middle register, because it sounds lovely, maybe even bigger than this one. But then when you get into the upper register, you know, this was an idiot-proof double G, and that one's like, oh wait, oh yeah, I need to work a little bit harder.
Yeah.
So in context, it kind of makes more sense for the mouthpiece to be like that.
Right.
Yes. I love that you can, you know, that you're having no problem, you know, in general on that mouthpiece with a bigger open throat. Most people are looking for something like this.
Right.
That's why we brought it in. I'll go back to that one.
We're just in time for your portion of the clinic. So, is it- He just finished his presentation, and he's asking for anyone who wants to.
Really easy to do, right?
So,
Yeah.
now,
less energy.
but we will, you
Less
can
movement,
break
less
up and go
everything.
into different
Yeah.
spots,
Mhm.
but this is just the first person to pop up, so. And this report kids some of this, which is understandable, like, it's nerve-wracking, like, the bottom just played the shit out of it.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, I didn't know he was gonna be that stuff.
Yeah.
Check the dynamic
Come in and play and then.
They have three people, they got Adam, Joel, and Henrik, they're all Lotus teams.
Yeah.
And so their intention is to like,
Well, and I figured he would probably listen to you something.
yeah,
That kind of thing.
certainly with hanging out for
I
like,
didn't know if I would want to also play trumpet by that one, just to feel the difference,
Yeah.
just, you know, side by side.
But right now, that guy's playing his own thing. I know for me personally,
To see what it's, you know,
I would love to play a few things and have him make suggestions around. He's like, I just don't have temperament to do it for everybody. I won't play that many. Yeah. It's like I'm not going to give you enough to help me with because I'll be too nervous. I'll be too.
yeah, cool. So play some music, play a phrase that's really delightful on top of the
It's
band.
very interesting because you're getting to hear what he thinks about the story.
Oh,
And
yeah.
certainly from a pedagogical perspective. It's,
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so take one pass at that, a good 2 dynamic levels lower.
Okay.
To the point where it's not really triggering the excitement that comes along with that style, but just where all the notes just come out, you can sleepwalk your way through the part of it. But really, try it.
All right.
Sing it like a sweetheart. Yep. So that is the three small in brass. Here's what happens with do the exact same thing, you know, real minimalist approach in terms of energy. Hence the 3Fs in nickel. So the first obvious thing is it was cleaner, right? Like substantially cleaner. So this is, in this case, a nickel mouthpiece is medicine for you, not poison.
Okay.
And now play one dynamic level out. Like really still feeling like you're cheating at life. That, you know, just really not working hard. But just let a little bit more air out. Yeah, you don't have to hold back. Just don't push it. Yeah. You see, I mean, you see how easy it really could be?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, the difference between our first gen mouthpieces and this one, there are a lot of differences geometrically. The back board's not the same anymore, the throat is a little bit tighter, and as a result, it's even more efficient to play. So whatever your expectation of how hard you're supposed to work is, change that. You know, you get on this mouthpiece, it's just easier, period.
It does really good.
You were definitely, you were going at it, you know, on the other mouthpiece. And you can still, this mouthpiece will let you go there, but it doesn't, you don't need to. You know, like if you want to, sure, cool, but you know, err on the side of longer endurance and it's all good. That into a microphone, you wouldn't need anything more. You know what I mean? So if you're playing into a mic, then that's it. That's the gig. You're not working any harder than that. If you're off mic, or you just, you know, have an inner animal that just has to be let out, then sure, step on the gas some more. But not necessarily required. You know, go ahead and play the phrase once, giving it some juice, and be mindful to like back off if you find like you're hitting a wall. Okay. Okay, cool. Now go back to the brass and we'll ask the peanut gallery which sound they like better. Thoughts, opinions? That you like this one?
Yeah.
For, in terms, what does it offer the other
I
one?
think the fluidity of just like movement and sounded more, I guess, linear.
That's a result of brass versus nickel. It's that flexibility versus stability. And you will find a difference in the note connections. They feel more fluid and more slurred, perhaps. Whereas on nickel, you can be slurring and it can sound articulated, right? So there is a sonic difference between them, noticeably, right, for sure. But then there's you also have to consider the fact that it was cleaner on the nickel, you know? And if you're playing into a mic, it doesn't matter anyway. You know, to some degree, tone quality matters a hell of a lot less when you're playing into a mic, because it's always going to get tweaked and then pumped through some speakers afterward. You don't have much control over what the end result is going to be coming out of the PA. What you do have control over is choosing the tool that makes the job feel the easiest possible. I get a sense that you feel more comfortable on the nickel.
It feels more comfortable, like the notes are gonna be more wild.
Yeah.
Especially when you got such a, because that solo was, even the game stock service, and so like it's such an exposed part.
Yeah. So then the responsibility for you, if you were to play in the nickel, since we know that connectivity is something that inspires, you know, something that people are appreciative of. It's important that you make sure when you play the nickel that you really do play it with romanticism. Just some kind of intention in your air that will glue all the notes together.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So as long as you're being a romantic, then the nickel won't be a problem. Yeah, so it's interesting that you've got those two different options without ever having to, I mean, they sound like two different mouthpieces, but they're exactly the same shape.
Yeah.
Right? So now let's see if we can maybe go and give something that's slightly different, but also makes life easier. So instead of a nickel 3S, what happens if I give you the 3 extra small in brass? Does that help lock in your notes anymore?
Yeah. I know.
So that's already, it's like, well, that's not a lot of mouthpiece.
Yeah.
So you probably would do better on like choosing between the small and the M2 cup, something that's gonna give you an even richer tone. This one just started taking things away.
Yeah.
So
Not much to work with.
Right.
Literally.
So let's try the 3M2 in nickel, which will perhaps give you that stability, and also because it's a bigger cup, it might give you more fluidity. So you got it figured out. You're sort of approaching it not like a lead mouthpiece, not like play it like a real lead, like a real mouthpiece. Maybe just a ya da da da.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there, well, yeah, you notice that it's, in your case, the depth of the cup really does change the way that you feel about, how easy or difficult the notes are.
Yeah.
I see. So for that reason, the S cup makes you feel more comfortable right now. If you had even a day on that mouthpiece, I'm pretty sure that you'd be able to get all the way to the top of your comfortable range with a bigger, fatter sound. So that's an interesting choice. You can't go wrong with a 3 small nickel, but also the 3M2 is kind of worth it unless you're playing extreme lead. If you need to scream on A's and do real animal stuff, then of course definitely the small cup is a more appropriate tool for that. But if we're talking about high note solos, that's kind of a different thing. That's the 3M2 becomes a valid option because it'll give you all that extra meat, all that extra depth.
Yeah.
exciting sound, but it's not a lead mouthpiece. So you get the excitement and a richness that's not only there with lead pieces, which is pretty delightful.
I like more of this.
Yeah.
Especially on the C, the other kind of kitty. And then when I left it, but try to get the play it like a mouthpiece.
Yep.
Then it started doing the thing where like, that's all mouthpiece. Oh, that's what I can find that.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah, for that kind of stuff, you'll be getting a much broader tone from the M2
Yeah.
than you would from the S.
Yeah, I feel like I got more freedom to work with, right? It's like, I do have to be careful whenever I'm on this guy.
The small.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that, and your other mouthpiece.
That's a
One out. Okay, so you are accustomed to playing on something deeper than this for your all-around.
Right.
What kind of stuff are you playing on the one?
One I'll just, general practice or like, solo repertoire, concert bands, symphonic bands. That kind
Okay,
of stuff.
okay, so you do need something that's deeper than the M2 as a home base kind of place, but then for the exciting stuff, since you already have this mouthpiece, you already have the 3S, if you were, of course, if you feel that much more comfortable on the new version of it in a nickel, then cool.
Yeah.
But it is also a valid option to keep that and use that for the, for the bright shiny, the tuning stuff. You go for something like the M2, where you might be able to use that, depending on the solo in your concert band setting, maybe that could be the thing that you use for your solos. Concert bands, it's those ensembles have so much warmth, so much mid-range, just ooh floating around the stage. It's like 1,000 clarinets and a bunch of other instruments that all make that ooh. So typically, if your trumpet sound has a bunch of ooh in it, it's gonna get lost anyway, probably. And the thing that's gonna get you out in front of the band and being heard is the shinier high-end harmonic stuff.
Yeah.
And this being a real legitimate cut that also has lots of excitement, that could be like. So, so there's that. Of course, you should take some time, maybe not necessarily in front of everybody, but take a couple of mouthpieces, the version of we can do one L together, and then I can send you up to like different versions of different variations on that theme, so you can really fine tune it.
Yeah.
So the 3S is creative, 3 and 2 right now. Do you need to go between a 3 ring and a 1 ring? Does that feel comfortable?
Yeah, it's comfortable.
There's never a sacrifice involved in that.
If anything, would be sometimes it's like, all right, don't, the lower register doesn't come out.
I'm gonna find this. Yeah.
More likely to get those on, but I mean, it's really, I mean, all those unsolved. One was really
In which case, this is, for a little mouthpiece that goes in the low register, that's what's up. So if you feel good on the 1 gram, then let's do it. I'll show you the new version of our 1L.
I've been thinking about this. So I just don't know where to go here.
So one is brass, so let's go nickel. I feel like that really, in both cases, that did really well for purchasers. Walking notes, and some tunes just respond really well.
That's it, you came to the right place.
So.
Some hate it.
Maybe-
Some-
Yeah.
I don't think the solo is probably gonna be wide.
I think maybe that last one, there's a tech in the repair shop. You could use the repair shop too, which is to the left, but there's a tech working in there. It might have more NYU. He won't annoy you because of the tar tech, but I think that should be tried out for any of the lessons. The lessons are a little on the small side, they're dead. So I think but yeah, if you want to do that, grab it. I have my classic here. If you want to take the
that's because I'm just listening for stuff that it shouldn't have to take very long to find which slipper fits the test. Yeah, articulate.
It's his.
Do you have a preference?
That's one of the, like, easier to articulate, but just,
Yep.
just a smidge.
Yep.
But also, I thought it also had like better tone too, so allow me to have better.
Yep. So we have the L cup and the L2, and the difference between the regular large and the L2. The large has a slightly wider sound and a softer articulation. So it's maybe more appropriate for jazz players who are looking to, find some stuff. Just like look for something that isn't, just popping articulations, but to be able to woo your way through things and sort of doodle tonguey, softness about the note connections. And then we have the L2, which is much more crisp and articulate. The L2 worked for you much better right off the bat because it was giving you that crisp articulation, which you felt. I gave you the mouthpiece and the bronze, and the bronze version is what gave you that lovely tone as well. So kind of that's what it works. You get the L2 gives you that crisp, poppy articulation, but makes the sound a little bit more directional than the L. But then when you make it in bronze, now that opens your projection back up and adds more ooh, and so that's nice. Yeah, play something, play a piece. Do the same thing. Well, actually, play that opening once more. The articulation is less pronounced, it's softer. Let's go.
Oh, they weren't.
I gotta say, I'm cleaning off the outside of the receiver because it's dirty inside of the receiver. The mouthpieces are cleaning it out.
Sorry about that.
No, it's quite all right. That's good. So that one was much crisper, much more articulate, but didn't have quite the warmth. So now play once more on that. Right, and that's automatically just warmer.
Yeah.
So that extra richness that you're getting from the mouthpiece being made out of bronze is exactly why we make that mouthpiece in bronze.
Yeah,
It just
okay.
makes it
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Just that little like material difference changes the whole character.
yeah, totally. So play a little bit more music on that, see if it's, in general, if it feels good.
I'll try a little light one. That's all right.
Do it. pop in your 1L and compare.
It's like mouthpiece.
So it's still a clear, pure, crisp tone, but there's something.
It's more fun overall, like, down that out.
Yeah.
Whereas this one's like, okay, you're sugaring a little too much on this, one's supposed to be like, no, yeah.
Right, exactly. So there's a good reason to go for bronze, for something where you want that kind of presence.
Yeah.
And also just this is a totally new cup. The L
Oh, yeah.
cup was one of the things that got bumped off of, we went for the new design. So this one I'd say is just a better, richer, all around mouthpiece. So play one quick portion of that melody, for instance, on this one and on this. It even made you want to play softer.
Yeah.
Like it encourages healthy practices.
Yeah, here goes softer, all right.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, lovely tone. So that horn is really responsive to nickel and bronze. You can sort of tell when it's like, no, in either case, some horns just reject nickel, some reject bronze, and some go really well with both. So I feel like we offer brass just for folks who don't, who are just looking for middle of the road, or whose horns just don't work very well with the other materials. But in this case, since your horn does go there, you might as well go there. If you want excitement, go go exciting. If you want rich and creamy, then go rich and creamy. There's no sense in splitting the difference in that case. So yeah, bronze for the big one and nickel for the little one. That's pretty straightforward. Yeah. So cool. You can also spend some time in a room afterward. You can take these and go, or I'll check first to see who's likely to be playing what. And if nobody else, I don't think anybody else is going to play on the 3S. So are you guys looking for yeah? Maybe? Okay. All right, so maybe we'll do that in a little bit. Okay. So, nice job. Thank you. Right, next victim.
Can I ask you a question
Sure.
while the next person's getting their stuff out?
Yeah.
So you get your stuff out. When do you talk about rim size, like rim diameter? Like, do you have thoughts on? Because I think sometimes people pick a diameter because someone else plays it.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily think because it's the right fit. So do you have thoughts on
How to
appropriate
find-
rims?
how to
Yes.
find the
Yes.
right
Yes.
one.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's always easy to play smaller than your optimal rim. You just get smaller and smaller sound, So it's like I can play on a 7L or a 9. I can play lead on an 11S or a 9S or a 7S, but I like the 3, and that's because anything smaller doesn't help me at all, but it just gives me a smaller sound. And anything larger gives me diminishing returns in the upper register. So after a certain point, you'll just find that either your range gets cut off a bit, or that in that range, it's a little bit more slippery, a little bit more sloppy. Maybe there's a articulation that can start to happen more on your double Gs or whatever. So I would say it's quite the opposite information that I've heard, or advice that I've heard from other professional trumpet players who say get away, play the smallest thing you can get away with. But that's just going to give you the smallest sound that you can tolerate. Playing the biggest stuff you can get away with is a better mark to shoot for, in my opinion, just because you keep going bigger until all of a sudden you realize that's not helping me anymore. That's actually, there's somewhat of a detriment there. And then, cool, well, now you know where to stop, So
Yeah.
I'd say, for somebody who comes in looking for a 1, just because, their teacher plays on a 1 1/4, but the kid's only this tall and has like half the diameter of mouth from side to side, obviously they shouldn't be playing on a 1. We should find, what gives them the right ratio of lip inside to outside the mouthpiece. And usually the easiest way to determine that is at the top, near the top of their range. If they're like, ooh, well, this one's not as easy. Cool, good. So now we know where to stay.
Back up then.
Yeah.
I find that sometimes as trumpet players, we're willing to put up. Jim Manley has said this to me several times that we'll put up with really bad sounds as trumpet players. And because you may play something so I want to sound like you, so I'll play the gear that you play, but that might be too small or too large. And
Exactly.
have you found in general, if you had to say one or the other, have you found that more people tend to play or have gravitated to equipment that's actually too large
Too
for
big,
them?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's been my experience just in retail and selling the stuff. Is it's rare that someone comes in and I'm like, oh, you're playing on a mouthpiece too small, but instead I feel like, well, you're playing on something too large. I'm just curious
Both
with your
happened.
experience.
Just yesterday, I saw a guy who was playing on something, just a tiny little lead mouthpiece. And sure, we've got the 11 rim and the 9 rim stuff here with us, but then we got him on the 7, and it was no more difficult for him in the upper register, and the sound had tripled.
Right.
So you see both, but I think it's typical among classical trumpet players especially to say, I'm playing on a 1 1/4 C because that's what my teacher told me I needed to do to have a big boy sound. But it's completely asinine to say this size of mouthpiece is going to work perfectly for you. I love the way Michael Jordan plays basketball, so I'm going to buy size 15 shoes.
Yeah.
It just doesn't, pay attention to the maybe in this case, to keep the analogy going, which kinds of shoes they are. Not that that's even going to make a very big difference, but at least make sure that you're fitted for the right size. So if you want to play the way that I play it will say somebody has said, okay, I want to be able to do what you can do in terms of getting from the low register to the upper register, no problems, no breaks, and being able to get a warm sound or a bright sound everywhere. I would say, okay, then it sounds like the medium cup is what you're going for. That's what I use to get there. But I'm playing on the 2 medium, and for that person it might be the 7 medium. What matters more isn't the diameter of the rim. It matters what's the ratio of lip inside versus outside of the cup. So you can encourage people towards a particular cup type, but the rim has to be all about that and their mouth.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
So, when you say rim, you're actually talking about the space
Yeah.
inside, not the actual
Yeah.
flat part
The diameter, but
Yeah,
from
okay.
left to right, how much of your lip is actually going inside the cup and vibrating.
Okay.
So, yeah, what do you got?
Dr. Shoehorn and Monad
B2 S5. Okay, cool. So that's our 1 rim, more or less. So, all right, let's take a baseline.
So this is like if I'm not doing the lead or show
Mhm.
stuff.
Right.
This is the go-to.
Yep. Yep.
Wake up.
rich sound.
And yeah, with this kind of setup,
Right.
yeah, getting that nice full rich.
Yep, but you're playing on a bobby shoe.
Yes, because that's what. So I had an Edwards X13, and like the bulk of my work is the commercial work.
Okay.
So I'm like, okay, I have to have like I have to have like that one. That's
Yep.
what pays my bills. I need
Yep.
to have that one.
Yep.
And I'm perfect. So.
Mhm.
So I stuck with this. I sold my Edwards X13 because, like, even when I was playing in sections, like, I didn't blend as well, like for the classical side of things, like,
Right.
it just didn't work as well. Playing it, I could play it as lead, but it was a bigger horn.
Yeah.
And so it was like, I'm working way too hard to get the sound that I need for
Yep.
the jobs that I'm doing. So I'm just, that's how I ended up with getting a large piece, a lot of weight behind it
Right.
to try to thicken up the sound and stuff, which the body shoe too, surprisingly warms up. a
Yeah.
lot with
Oh,
it,
yeah.
But it is still primarily your
Yeah, okay. So we're in the one room. We could start with a large cup, but I feel like you're also gonna be able to go into like an XL2. Here's the 1L in bronze to further encourage the horn to get warm. That's less than the front end.
Yeah. It's a lot more resonant and you can like set it slots a lot nicer too.
So play a phrase, just pick one thing that you can play back and forth.
My trumpet is awesome for singing. Sorry.
Anybody else? Yeah, right. I mean, that's a clear winner. In terms of playing in the middle register and not giving it much gas and just getting a broader, richer tone. Now, what's the most likely scenario you find yourself in on this horn or this mouthpiece combination where it's not a lead or commercial gig, but you need to put some energy.
Oh, like the churchy gigs or something like that.
Yep. Yeah. Try some of that.
It's immediately like I don't have to work. I don't have to try as hard to get that sound out. I don't have to work to really send it. It just naturally.
Yep.
sends out.
So do that same thing. Play the same volume, but with less air. Just only go at it. Ease into it until you've. Okay, there it is. There's the sound. Because there is a point of diminishing returns where you can keep on pushing more, but it's not necessarily going to lead to us getting more, other than adding an element of kind of, I don't know, anxiety to, just that some kind of negative description of when it starts to redline. So just make it broad and exciting, but with as little energy put in as possible. Nice. Good. Yeah, and you're probably still just in second gear.
Yeah, and that's it really like you can feel a very fine line of like, oh, that's right where I need to be.
Yeah.
And it really
Yeah.
clearly tells you where that line is.
Yes. Now go ahead and push past that line, just disregard it and see, what happens if you just say, I don't want to unload all 9 yards, I want to just.
Oh, we got
give
people
it.
sitting here.
I don't feel like I can overblow it.
Right.
Like, yeah,
That's it, yeah.
I can get that point and it hits the wall, but
Yeah.
I'm not like pulling past it. I'm not like
Yeah.
clipping or anything
Right,
like that.
so now you found the minimum, where it's like, okay, that's where it starts to light up. That's super easy. And then you found kind of what into
Oh,
Trumpet
okay.
is the maximum, where you really don't need to.
Me off there for a minute.
Just a little bit.
Which keeps you in a sounding polite, so it's not.
I still play
Now,
hard
do
anyway.
something.
I don't know about that. From just here. Yeah. I don't want to hear
Yeah, it's not like I can still feel where I can push right past. Like feel that. I still kind of feel that line, but it's one that like it doesn't stay there. Like stop here.
Yeah.
It's like retreat and go. Which is a bad point.
At your own peril.
Yeah, at your own peril.
Right. Yeah, and then where's the minimum amount of air required in order to get it to speak with a regal quality?
Yeah, it has to be a lot. I mean, not like significantly, but there's definitely more pressure than
Yep.
in order to get that really full crisp
Yep.
sound.
So then once more on that. Yeah, that's really
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
I
Now,
do like this coating too.
yeah,
It feels nice.
Yeah.
Like I always like going gold with the mouthpieces because I just like the feel. of it.
Sure.
And but this also adds another layer of that.
yeah, yep, for sure. Well, because we got real nitpicky about the particular grain of what we sandblast inside the cups and on the rim on the outside, and we're using different processes with sand or pieces of glass that are different thicknesses in micron count. So it's a softer sandblasting on the rim and something more coarse on the outside. Because on the outside it gets all shiny and sparkly because it's more coarse. And up here it's a lot smoother. So, but it makes a really big difference. That little bit of sandblasting versus if we left it buffed, we just kind of like stick to the lips. With the sandblasting, we've got that more soft. It can move around in your face a little bit more, making it more similar to what you would expect from a gold mouthpiece. They sort of move around and not get stuck. All right, so you sound glorious on the 1L bronze. That's lovely. Let's find out if there's any reason not to go bigger. So here's the XL2 in bronze also.
Doesn't feel like I'm working in part. It's bigger, it doesn't feel like.
It's less aggressive. There's a higher threshold that you need to get to before it starts to go very. But let me see. Okay, so in bronze, okay, that turned your lobby shoe into a much bigger sound trumpet. Okay, so that's noticeable. But I want to see if you can define that balance where we
Yeah,
do
we-
an XL2 in
we
brass,
have-
because already the cup is deeper, so it's going to be warmer already. I want to make sure that it still leaves that excitement.
Yeah, can you
that
find
noise
Mouthpiece?
in the sound without-
We are. They're gonna go to Springfield.
Go back to the. So that's the 1XL2 in brass.
There's a-
So the material wants it to be warmer than it would be otherwise, but the top is shallower. So we've got sort of two different ways of having a nice balance between richness and excitement.
And then I can, because they keep all that stock.
Oh, good, okay. Feels more comfortable on my face. I think it's a little bit smaller.
Cool.
And
Yeah.
it's not quite as of a broad sense.
Right, but it's still
It's still
broad
there.
enough, yeah, and that's a really, I'm so glad that it's a sign of maturity that you would choose the one that feels easier, but isn't necessarily as broad as possible, because normally, and what I did when I was, hanging out in Portland is no matter what, I would always choose the biggest sounding thing, even if that just gave me more and more and more rope to hang myself with. So
That's exactly where I found myself with the Advocate.
Yeah.
I was like, I love the horn. It's not a horn. I'm like, it's just like, it's right here.
Yeah.
Too much for what I need. It's
Yeah.
not the right car for the track.
Cool. Well, there you go. There it is, the 1L in the bronze. We could try the 1L2, or if it's here. A1L2 in bronze. So you got the 1L that was just one horn. And so now, just to make sure, so we know we can't go.
It's gonna sound better
deeper.
than unless it's.
We know we shouldn't go deeper.
That's so.
And we know that bronze is as thick and creamy as it gets, and that's what we're gonna look for. So now we're just down to the L cup or the L2 cup. Tiny little variation on.
Yes, right.
What's the difference?
The difference is the shape of the L as it goes into the throat has a nice soft round transition from the cup into the throat. So there's a good, soft funnel there. Whereas the L2 keeps coming and just keeps going and bowling and then boom, has more of a sharp kind of plateau into the throat. It's just that one little change. Otherwise, it's the same cup. There's a little bit of a change in the backboard too, but it's super minimal. So really, what we're talking about is just essentially the same mouthpiece, one that favors a broader tone with the potential of having a less crisp articulation versus definitely a crisper articulation, but not necessarily wide at the top. So we're already gonna essentially move the tone into its widest possible direction because we're going with bronze, or at least if not wide, at least wide. So yeah, we'll just see which way, when you're slurring through things, do something where you slur all the notes, like some kind of scale passage and slur, and then something where you articulate, and we'll just see which one has the better balance. So yeah, first on that one. Something slurred.
I know.
It's probably aftermarket stuff. Just that one little. Okay. Yep.
$99 payment. Well, that's fine.
L2. See how that just kind of pings a bit
Yeah,
more?
it's much, it's, I have to go lighter, but it's still really crisp.
Yep.
I have to back off my articulation a little bit to make sure that it's not.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So whether that's a good thing or a bad thing depends on what is your nature, and when you're on the gig, how do you play? When the drummer is crashing with the, like how do you like to? Do you want to have to back off the gas in order to avoid an overly aggressive articulation, in which case you play the L for sure. But if you're if it's more the vibe, like, you know, I feel like I can't get the excitement, you know, and I need to play too hard in order to get crisp articulations, then the L2. So it just depends on context.
And I've been back a couple months ago. I finally got to this point where I'm like, oh, okay, I'm working way too hard to get the sound I can get. And I found myself playing 2 gigs on Friday night, 2 gigs on Saturday, and just bust my face out, trying to get through it. And I get through it, but I'm just muscling down to just try to push through it. And like backing off that sound and realizing that, like, oh, the trumpet is made to be loud. Like, it's made to send down the sound over these bands. And now I'm trying to get into that mindset of like, okay, what equipment is going to allow me to still maintain that sharp attacking sound that I want for these commercial gigs, while also allowing me to relax in a lot of that.
Okay, so otherwise I can put them on.
But still
Now to save that spot.
Well, finding, so you've got a 2 mouthpiece set. You've got like
But we can- I can
normal
push down
word
to
and then commercial and lead.
Yeah.
If you wanted one mouthpiece where you'd be able to do it all, and we're adamant about that, I'd say the L2 would be the way to go, because that'll light up quicker than the L comes.
Okay.
You know? And if we maybe remove the bronze, maybe brass, then that would make it, you know, shinier and perhaps more appropriate for the commercial lead stuff. But if you're okay with a 2 mouthpiece setup, then we don't have to search for a compromise on all fronts.
Because I'm saying mouthpiece is a GR, and it's just
And your email?
and I feel like I fight with it a lot. I think I went too small, kind of thing.
Yeah, I'd say.
But yeah, it's tiny.
Okay, well, let's offer a little alternative to that. Let's work on that, because this 1L, the 1L2, let's resolve that. So, which one is more fun for playing some jazz?
Yeah.
It's really lovely. It's got a sweetness and
Let me check this out.
So quick, it's like a sports car.
Yeah.
You tap the gas, and right there. There you go. One's just a little more reserved, like it doesn't pop quite as fast.
Exactly.
It does a little, but
Exactly.
still a little more.
So, how much do you like stepping on the gas?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I like it, well, I like the fact that I'm stepping on the gas, but I'm not like stomping on gas. I'm just like, just tapping it a little bit and
If you need to make that
out.
change,
So like, I'm trying to
just give us a call.
everything to just be a lot relaxed.
Okay, super. Give me a couple minutes to check your email. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to give me a call back.
Yet.
What I'm trying to figure out.
Okay, let us know.
That was
So
gonna
in
be
that case,
used
I guess the 1L2,
But the
because
drums
that
do
makes things feel a bit easier.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So we got the 1L2 in bronze, and the bronze makes a big difference for sure, especially on that one. And then for lead piece, play a little something, wake everybody up, and try something else. You're playing really well. It's just, with this company especially, it's just so much, it's so nasal, it's so small.
And the articulation that I get out of it, it's just, it's so aggressive.
Yeah. So, well, let's see what we can do. So we'll start with the 3S. And we'll move from there.
pointed, still super bright and punchy, but
Yeah.
broader and just a little like less stabby.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and there's nothing wrong with stabbing people in the ears. I mean, it's part of the job description. But, you know,
That might be.
we're either here to help, and sometimes helping means hurting. So
I'll word it.
over here, there's a nickel. Yeah. So let's because I mean, I don't know. The shoe might do better with brass, but we can try the nickel and see what you like.
Yeah, that really zooms.
Yeah.
But
Do you, if you did that same thing with picking off those E flats? So either way, you're safe. You're on safe ground
yeah,
either way.
I do like the responsive from just those two instances.
Yeah.
I do like the nickel a little more.
Yeah. Yeah. So use it, play an excerpt. Yeah. Some phrase that is fun.
I don't know why I can't think of that situation.
Say like, well, what's a common gig song that you play? You know?
September.
Yeah, there. Yes, yes, absolutely. That works better.
Yeah, I do like that nickel.
Yeah.
So immediately locks in a little more.
Yep. Did we get the diameter right? Because if you can go wider, then you get closer to the rim you're normally playing on. I feel definitely no problem going between a 1 to a 2, a 2 to a 3, and a 3 to a 7. But 1 to a 3
Yes, yes. Do you guys
could
still
put
need
you in
it?
a position where you feel like you're a little bit trapped inside. You know, like if you have to play most of the gig on a larger cup, and then you have to pop in the lead piece. In general, it works better for people if it's not that much of a diameter change.
Yeah.
So play something that, or an exercise or a piece of music that takes you to the top of your comfortable range, something that you can use in a gig. And let's test the extremes, exactly the conversation that the question that I've been asked about. How do you know which rim is right? Let's test the extremes and see if 2S it just opens up the sound, or actually, does a little snip snip upstairs.
It's here, isn't that make sure. Sounds good.
Actually, I don't have 2X here with me. But what we can do is we can check tone quality and preference and S and XS.
I said the same.
So one for, you know, maybe the September.
I do have a 2S over here in the Gen 2.
Nice. It's got a different throat size, so it wouldn't be a perfect comparison.
That was something interesting. So I've tried some of the older generations of Lotus, it didn't slot in my lead pipe. Cause like the ones that I had were like slightly loose. It wouldn't tighten down. These do that. And that was something that was like, cause I know it was, some of Lane's. Yeah.
I don't know if there's more down or.
Yeah, I thought he might do, but.
He did, but he.
Yeah. Right. Well, on the small pump, if you're pumping that in, it's not time for that.
No, it's not.
Time for.
All right, everyone, hands up.
Just a little more control where like control over the manipulation of my pitch.
Yeah,
I guess.
yeah, the S gives you more room to work with, for sure.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so no excess. We don't need that. Nor do we need the 3S in brass, because the one in nickel was the one that was more exciting for you. So, yeah, we do both your mouthpieces hands down. And the good thing is you can get some money for that mouthpiece, so that can turn into a fundraiser to pay for the other two. Oh, yeah, use it. Yeah, easy.
Found one.
Found one. The good news is they hold their resale value. The better news is now you have a good reason to sell it. Woo! Sure, very well. Yeah, sound great? Yeah, totally. But we need to make sure to get people sized up for that before after. You guys can all run away with them. Thank you. All right. Cool. Who's up? Yeah, no, don't be shy. Hear you. Okay. Cool. Well, play a little something. Let's hear how everybody goes. Nice sound, John. That's a good start. that your aperture is vibrating wide open. You don't have to have any like, if I'm just a saxophone player, you're making a beautiful tone, so that's, you're playing, you're a trumpet player. I know a lot of self-identifying trumpet players who sound like they have a lot further to go than you do, so, you know, just throw that away. All apologies off the table. And now let's just see what we can do to get you more results for the same amount of energy or for less energy. So it's important. Cool.
Keep moving down the list.
Yeah, I'm studying
Denise.
Do you want, what kind of tone do you gravitate towards?
Yeah, I got this.
Thanks for making the trip.
Yeah. Okay.
And then-
Let's try the first.
Yeah, I know there's a Boston Jersey chart somewhere. I almost brought it down on this website.
But, I mean, is it?
Okay, that's it. You good?
Right.
Use the one.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, hold on, let me go check.
So you can hear the tone quality, some differences? What do you
Yeah,
hear?
it feels different. Like when I'm playing this, I feel like it's soft. It feels softer on the bass, but I also feel that like more responsive for the lower notes especially. For like for the irons, it's kind of like
Let's see, define responsive, describe that. What feels easier about it? Go ahead and low register and see what.
just I don't know, I kind of feel like it's like I don't know,
Hand these off.
like it's softer even though.
Yeah.
It's kind of harder to control for that.
Alright. So once I know what your priorities are in order, then we can choose the right piece. We started with something that's fairly middle of the road, and this one has a much higher threshold before it starts to get, you know, exciting or aggressive or whatever. You know, it's quite warm. It's got a beautiful tone, actually, quite that mouthpiece. The intonation isn't quite there, but the tone quality is really rich and lovely. So that's probably what you're responding to. Show me, play some stuff in the low register that shows what you're going for.
See,
That's this range. And so this one has more sparkles in the sound, for sure, at a softer dynamic level. If you'd like to stay in this kind of like richer, creamier, just blowing dark chocolate kisses that everyone's kind of vibe, then we can do that, for sure. By going just a little bit deeper in the power. Yeah.